Alright, today I'm going to show you how to use trigonometry to find end portals in Minecraft. This video is going to cover math that's typically found in an American geometry or pre-calculus class, typically, 10th or 11th grade. Before we get our hands dirty though in the game, there's a couple of prerequisites that we need to cover first. So firstly, the coordinate system in Minecraft is a bit weird, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So if you open up the stats menu by pressing F3, you'll see three numbers associated with your coordinates in Minecraft. The first one corresponds to X, which is like your west to east location. The second, Y, represents your vertical location, so how high you are off the bedrock in the bottom. The last one, Z, represents your north to south location on the map. And no, north is not positive like you would assume it is. North is actually the negative Z direction, while south is the positive Z direction. East is X positive, and west is X negative. And since we only need our location on the map, we don't need to worry about the height, at least. The way the angles are measured in Minecraft is starting at the south line over here, and they open up upwards, either to the right or to the left. If they open up counterclockwise, they're negative, and if they open up clockwise, then they're positive. So, south corresponds to 0 degrees, east is negative 90 degrees, west is positive 90 degrees, and north is both positive 180 and negative 180 degrees, because if you're standing and you turn around 180 degrees behind you, it doesn't matter if you turn clockwise or counterclockwise, you'll be facing backwards either way. Now, let's talk about some properties of triangles. Making a triangle ABC and labeling its opposite side lengths of those angles A, B, and C, the interior angles of any triangle are going to add up to 180 degrees. If two angles add up to a straight line, then that means that they add up to 180 degrees as well. And finally, if we have two angles that add up to a right angle, then that means that they add up to 90 degrees. Lastly, given any triangle with angles ABC and the corresponding opposite sides A, B, and C, we have what's called the law of sines. The length of A divided by sine of the angle A is equal to the same ratios for the other angles and sides. That's equal to length B divided by sine of the angle B, and that's also equal to length C divided by the sine of the angle C. This is true for any triangle. Alright. And finally, if you have a right triangle with some angle over here, you can define sine and cosine in terms of the opposite side to that angle, the adjacent side to that angle, and the hypotenuse, that longer side of the triangle. Sine of the angle equals the ratio of the opposite and hypotenuse, while cosine of that angle equals the ratio of the adjacent side length of the hypotenuse. This means that you can rewrite these as hypotenuse times sine of the angle equals the opposite side, and hypotenuse times cosine of the angle equals the adjacent side. This means if you know the length of that hypotenuse and the angle over here in the triangle, you can always find the length of the opposite side and the length of the adjacent side to that angle. Okay, starting out here in Minecraft, we are on block negative 56, 64, 20. But from this position, I'm going to toss an eye of the ender real quick, and I'm going to jot down what the angle it makes. Now you can see here that left to right angle is that first number here, so this eye is at about 10.2 degrees off of south. And since it was facing that way, I'm going to go towards the west 100 blocks. So I'm going to go until I get to negative 156, some height, and then 20 as my Z. This one's going to go off an angle of about 6.8 degrees? Yeah, 6.8 degrees off of south towards west, so rotating clockwise from south. So I drew up a rough plot of northwest, south, and east on our Minecraft coordinate map. Our first position, if each of these tick marks is like 25 blocks, we're going to go to the left by negative 56 and down by 20. We went 100 blocks to the west from here, landing up at negative 156x and still positive 20 for my z. That length between those two positions is 100. Now, remember that the way that angles open up in Minecraft, from that south line, that first eye of Ender, was at an angle of 10.2 degrees. Then, after that, the second angle that we threw it was at 6.8 degrees. These two lines will eventually intersect, and where they do is the end portal. Now let's use some of that trigonometry to find out where exactly that is. First, we got to fill in the rest of the angles of this triangle. So if I make a copy of this triangle down here, this angle is going to be 90 plus that 6.8 degrees, so 96.8 degrees. This angle over here is the complement of 10.2 degrees, so I'm going to do 90 minus 10.2. I get 79.8 degrees. And finally, the interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. So if I subtract the other two angles from 180 degrees, I get 3.4 degrees. And remember, we know one of the side lengths of this triangle. The distance between the two dots that I was throwing the eyes of Ender from is 100 blocks apart. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and find the length of this longer side, the length from my initial throw to the end portal. How we're going to do that is with the law of sines. Remember, the law of sines says that 100 divided by its corresponding opposite angle, sine of 3.4 degrees, is equal to that unknown length divided by sine of its corresponding opposite angle, sine of 96.8 degrees. Using a little bit of algebra, I can multiply sine of 96.8 degrees to the other side to get 100 times sine of 96.8 degrees on the top, divided by sine of 3.4 degrees on the bottom. Now you can just plug this expression into a calculator and find the length of that longer side. It's important to note, though, that there's multiple ways that you can measure angles. You can use degrees, or you can use something else called radians. And since we've been working with degrees this entire time, make sure that you are using degrees for this calculation. So rounded to the nearest block, I have 1,674. So the distance from my first throw to the end portal is 1,674 blocks. What I'm doing is I'm essentially imagining that I'm projecting this dot up here, making it perpendicular to the east to west line, therefore giving us a right triangle. This length is still 1,674, so sine of that angle equals opposite divided by hypotenuse. The opposite is unknown, so we'll just put in op for now. But I know the hypotenuse is 1,674. Cosine of 79.8 degrees equals adjacent divided by hypotenuse. Again, I don't know what the adjacent side length is, but I do know the hypotenuse is 1,674. Again, using a little bit of algebra, I can rewrite the hypotenuse times sine of that angle is equal to that opposite length. And that rounded to the nearest block is 1,648, and I can rewrite cosine as 1,674 times cosine of 79.8 degrees. That is equal to that adjacent side length, which that turns out to be 296 rounded to the nearest block. This direction is the negative x direction, but going down is the positive z direction. Remember, Minecraft is a little weird with their coordinate system. So I need to go negative x by 296, which means I need to subtract 296 from my coordinates and add 1,648 to my z coordinates. So from my initial position, that was it, x is negative 56, y is positive 20. I need to subtract 296 from negative 56. I get negative 352, my x. And then from 20, I need to add 1,648, and I get 1,668. That's my x, that's my z, and again, y doesn't matter. I'm going to go to that x and that z coordinate now in Minecraft. Alright, negative 352, 1,648-ish, around here. Doesn't really matter, I'm just going to start digging down. And if we did the math right, Hey, here we go. We are at the end portal.